Today on Here for the Right Reasons, Clayton Echard gets emotional talking about his split with Susie.
So I remember just kind of like looking at each other and thinking like, we have to heal separately because we can't take this any longer. Like I'm so destroyed that like there's nothing left. I have zero energy to fight this battle any longer.
Plus, Mary Pepin gives us her thoughts on Zach's season and advice she would give to future Bachelor in Paradise cast members.
But it's a once in a lifetime thing, you know, who can say I went on a TV show and met the love of my life, you know? So there's always that chance that they do find their person. So I think they should go for it.
Plus, Jess reveals she was blindsided by Zach, while Ashley Hebert gets real about the online hate she received post-divorce. We got that plus so much more on today's Here for the Right Reasons. Hey guys, Christina Garibaldi here with Us Weekly Deputy Editor Sarah Heron. And Sarah, we are 1 week away from hometowns, Women Tell All, but it was an emotional way to get there, I guess.
I mean, I'm a little kind of surprised that we have 4 ladies left. I mean, I think these are always the weeks when I guess things get cut in half, but it is jarring every time. And this was no exception. I was a little surprised. But you know, I'm excited to get into it.
Definitely. Before we do, let's see what you guys had to say about last week's show. Aglaia says, honestly, the moment with Jess looked like a gaslighting moment on Zach's end. Jess was actually vulnerable in that moment and looks like he used this moment to let her go. It reminded me of a moment with Greer when she clearly overreacted on her comment about COVID. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people agree that this wasn't the best moment talking about Jess leaving in last week's show.
Yes, and Beth said something similar about Zach's true colors. She said Zach is definitely showing his true colors. While some may view his behavior favorably, as in he doesn't tolerate any drama, he creates drama by dismissing anyone who asks for clarification and or questions his actions towards them. He emits a real iciness in those situations. I can't imagine how he would respond if he were really challenged and or when more significant issues surfaced in a long-term relationship. Ladies, beware. This dude is far from a king and will let you know that as soon as you assert yourself with him.
Ooh, we kind of said that last week. It feels like anything that he says that people don't agree with, he kind of like pushes them to the side. So it will be interesting to see how his relationship survives after The Bachelor.
Yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, during this episode, not to jump ahead, but when the women were like all insecure about how like the magician or mentalist like got in their heads and they were so worried about how Zach was going to react, I was like, they have reason to be. He's not usually rational, but he was very calm here. Mm-hmm. So part of me was like, either he just didn't like Jess and Greer that much, and he likes these women more, so he was more understanding, or they edited it better because everyone was turning on Zach this last week, and they needed to make Zach look like he maybe was a little more, you know, receptive or understanding of potential miscommunications, or maybe it's just, you know, he had a bad week last week. I don't know, but it's interesting. I really thought when they were all worried, I was like, they have reason to be based on how we've seen him handle like potential conflict before or questioning of the process or of him, which kind of happened with the mentalist, but he handled it pretty well. So
no, he did. And then Dub says, I'm sorry, but Jess, have you seen the show before? It's simple. 1 man, 30 women. 1 person gets the engagement ring. The other 29 are getting dumped on national TV. That's the nature of the show. Since when does everyone get a one-on-one? That's the risk you run. I guess so, but it's pretty late in the process. And when you're the last person getting a one-on-one date, it messes with you. It's got to mess with your head.
Yeah, there's always going to be the narrative of this is what you signed up for. Have you ever seen the show? And there is truth to it, but there's always that other side of the coin where it's like no one knows what it's like to be in front of those cameras, to be manipulated into thinking these are real emotions, or to maybe have some real emotions. And the way you act is just a reflection of that. It's the point of the show. It's the reason it's been on for 20 years. It works. People fall for each other because it works. So, totally. But we did catch up with Jess. I know we're going to get into it at the Women Tell All taping. What did she tell us about the breakup with Zach?
That is right. She said that she was blindsided, saying throughout our journey, he always reassured me and validated me. He always told me everything's going to be okay and to just kind of hold on. So as time went on and I wasn't getting that special quality time with him, I was definitely in my head of like, what am I missing here? There's nothing being communicated. That's so wrong. So in a way I saw it coming because it just wasn't adding up. But yeah, I definitely was blindsided by it all. She added that she still thinks that he's an amazing guy and was doing the best he could in the moment. But she said, I was doing the best that I could in the moment. We both just weren't understanding each other. And it doesn't mean I was right. I was in the right or he was in the wrong. There's no right or wrong. He was speaking his truth. Yeah, I mean, I feel like anybody would be like, if he's giving her that reassurance, but then, I mean, actions speak louder than words. So you could tell me that you like me until you're blue in the face, but unless you actually want to spend the time with me, I'm not going to believe you. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, a big theme in all of our interviews, which we can slowly roll out as the women are eliminated from the Women Tell All, are under embargo, and the ones that I've read so far, all of them seem to be blindsided by some degree. That was a question we asked everyone. And that goes to show Zach did something that a lot of bachelors don't do a good job at, which is giving validation, because all of, contestants want validation and they can only do so much. But all of them kind of said they felt it a little bit. So it's a good thing and a bad thing because it makes them more devastated, heartbroken. But as Zach is the Bachelor, like kind of what I talked about with Clayton, like you have to kind of submit yourself somewhat to this process and let yourself get invested. Clayton went too far, and Zach maybe was better at putting the boundaries up. Hopefully we'll see, but they all did get invested. So he has some real love there somehow.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, a former Bachelorette is speaking out. You may remember Ashley. She reflected on receiving intense criticism after announcing her split from J.P. Rosenbaum. Mm-hmm. She was on the Almost Famous OG podcast, and she said, when we separated, the amount of hate I got on my social media from men was mind-blowing. That's something that I was like, wow, we didn't cheat. There was no infidelity. I truly feel like we handled our divorce the best we could, and probably anyone could. So it was really hard to read all of those messages. When asked if JP experienced the same level of negativity, she realized that the brunt of the criticism was directed towards her. That was really interesting to me. Like, you separated your family. It was something along the lines that I did something wrong. I will always tell people, like, my kids took a divorce much better than half of America. Ooh, that's a good line. In case you forgot, they met on the 2011 season of The Bachelorette. They tied the knot 1 year later, and they announced their split in October 2020.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is crazy to me that like so many men are so invested in her relationship and like came after her on social media. Like, don't you have anything else to worry about, like your own lives? But I guess
the internet is just so crazy. Like, I remember when Ashley and JP broke up, I was shocked too, but I just like turned to my friend and I was like, I'm shook. Or like, even if you do put it on Instagram, like don't tag them, make a meme, like share it with your friends. You know, we write stories about it. It didn't mean I tagged, Ashley and JP in any story that wasn't like positive. Like, it's just crazy that people feel the need to tell everyone their opinions. And it says, to quote Kelsey Ballerini, it's something like this town to criticize a woman.
So true. All right, well, let's get into our Bachelor Nation talk. And we wanted to revisit a little bit more of your interview with Clayton. And I know he got like a bit emotional when he was talking about Susie.
Yes, you'll see the shock on my face. Obviously, I didn't know that we were potentially going to shed tears, but I thank Clayton both on and off the air for his vulnerability. Obviously, everything with Susie is very, they're moving on, but it's still a little raw. And I think it's just because it's so sad that they wanted it to work so bad, but just like could not make it happen with their mental health spaces. So here's what he said about Susie.
Well, you can't heal when you're pitted against each other. And it became, I'm trying to heal, you're trying to heal. When I wake up and I'm happy, fine for one day, you're struggling. So now I'm sharing your pain. So it was this constant struggle and depression, and it just wore us down. I mean, it just absolutely just destroyed us to where I didn't want to get out of bed certain days. My days would start at 11 a.m. because I just didn't want to get out and do stuff because I had no drive to live life. And, and it just was, I remember just kind of like looking at each other and thinking like, we have to heal separately because we can't take this any longer. Like, I'm so destroyed that like there's nothing left. I have zero energy to fight this battle any longer.
Yeah.
And it was just a really sad place to be. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna get a little emotional.
Oh God. Aw. We love vulnerability. That's what the book teaches us. Everyone can be vulnerable.
It just sucked because, like our last day together, we had already knew that we were ending things. But I stayed in a couple extra days after we broke up, and, we just turned on a movie. She actually had a projector was sent in to her, and we had this, we fired up the projector, turned on a movie, ordered a bunch of, food to the house, and just cracked up and laughed and cried and every single emotion on that last day. And then, I got up at 5 a.m. and drove away, and that was it. Wow. And it was just so odd because we had so much fun that last day. And I think we both though realized that like there's so much pain attached to all of this. And after all the damage that was already done, like, I don't know if we can repair this. And the best thing we can do right now is separate and do this separately. And is there a chance down the road that this could happen? We don't know. But like, we can't stay together any longer because there's just nothing. We have nothing left to give. So it was tough. I mean, it's a really hard place to be when you feel like it's out of your control and you make the decision, but ultimately you feel like the decision was almost made for you.
Yeah.
By the outside. So
I remember I talked to her in December and she said you guys like weren't really talking because like it was like hard to be friends. But then I feel like literally a week later, you guys were commenting on each other's Instagrams and you were friends again. I'm like, did my headline make everyone friends again? Or was it just, literally you were talking the next day by chance?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I told her I needed space at first because I couldn't like look. I had to mute her profile for a bit. Like I couldn't see her posts, her stories, because it just reminded me of what I no longer had. And it hurts. Like I was like, I want you to be in my life, but you no longer are. And so I had to cut that off. And I was like, I need to heal, but like I can't heal if I'm seeing you constantly pop up. So and she said, I get it. Like she gave me space. But then I realized like I didn't want to just X her out of my life completely. And I said, Clayton, you've gotten to that place where like you've taken your time, but you can be friends with her and you want someone like her in your life, even as a friend, because after all you went through, like she's done so much for you and she's an incredible person and you don't want to just like cancel her out for good. Right. And so I opened that door back up and just said, hey, listen, like my line's always open. I don't want to continue to just ignore because she wasn't ignoring me, but I said like, I didn't want to I want this line to be open because only us two have the full story. Only us two really we're the only two that went through this experience. So there's nobody else that I can talk to besides you about this. And I said, and I feel like I need that. And for my healing, right? Like I need somebody that understands me and what happened. And thankfully she felt similar as far as like, it is nice to talk to somebody that understands.
It's really sad because you really do like them together and, maybe down the line, maybe they would be able to find each other again. I don't think so, but maybe there was, right place, right time. And like they needed each other in that chapter of their lives.
Yeah, I think it's just tied to so much negativity and so much trauma for the both of them. And like you said, it was like one day it was good for her, one day it was bad for me. We couldn't get on that page and it was a constant reminder and they couldn't get their heads out of their own way, really. So as much as they got each other through that time, then they couldn't get past it as a unit. Maybe down the line, we'll see. But I have a feeling that they're both going to maybe find people outside of the franchise and realize it's much easier to make a healthy relationship versus constantly having to revisit. Because if they got back together now, or even in a year from now, that would still always have that connotation. But like Peter and Kelly have gotten back together and seem to have moved on. So you never know.
Yeah, never saw that one coming. So
you're telling me. Another couple who is still going strong, Mari and Kenny, in case you forgot from a couple seasons ago on VIP, they are getting ready to walk down the aisle. And she also is watching the show. So here's what Mari recently told me about what she's been up to.
Are you keeping up with The Bachelor? Like, are you still in that world? Do you dabble or are you watching Zach's season? Do you have any thoughts for me?
Yes, we've kept watching all the seasons after ours. So we watched The Last Paradise. We're watching Zach's season right now. And I'm actually very pleasantly surprised with Zach's season. I thought that I was going to be let down. There was this big perception about Zach being the boring bachelor. I hate to say that, but I know there was this big persona that people had built up about him being just kind of not exciting to watch, but I've been very pleasantly surprised. I think he's doing a great job. He's very communicative with all the women, and he seems to know how to connect with each one individually, which I wasn't expecting. So I also like that he cuts the drama right away. He's like, nope, this is serious to me. So yeah, I think he's doing a great job.
Isn't it kind of funny? I was just talking about that. I was like, this was the first season that I've had so many of those rose ceremonies that I was like, well, obviously this girl's sticking around, whether it was Christina, the girl from the first night, and then they're not. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is this an overall like rebrand for the show that they're trying, like this is the serious find love Bachelor, or was Zach just like putting his foot down? Maybe both. Like, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we'll see when the show ends and we see the ratings come out and all that stuff. But I kind of like this, and I feel like they should stick with this because I think it started off as this like fantasy, fall in love with this perfect guy kind of show. And then eventually it turned into more focusing on the women's drama and who doesn't like each other and the competition aspect. So I feel like maybe if we get back to the roots, we might, see a little bit of movement in terms of popularity again.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously we'll get another Bachelorette season after this and hopefully a Paradise season. What is your go-to advice that you give any of those girls who are going to be like, should I go to Paradise and how do I get a Kenny?
How do I get a Kenny?
How do I end up as a success story?
Yes. Well, I first of all encourage everyone to go to Paradise. It's a fun experience. I would say that it isn't the funnest in terms of how hot it is and the sweating and the no air conditioning. But it's a once in a lifetime thing. Who can say I went on a TV show and met the love of my life, So there's always that chance that they do find their person. So I think they should go for it, first and foremost. And then once they're actually on the beach, I would say just focus. Because it's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to, someone new just came down. Let me go see what that's about. But if you have made a connection, you're into it, as I learned, stick with it.
Yeah, liking the show, giving some advice for the upcoming Bachelor in Paradise contestants, and planning her November wedding. So busy, busy, busy.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get into our recap. It seems like, based on everybody that we've seen so far, I feel like he and Kody have the best connection.
I'm still torn between Kody and Gabby.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I really am. And the fact that they had like the little button on the end of the episode where they're like in the bathtub together, it's like, oh, so they're friends. Interesting. Because I think they are like just so far ahead of anyone else on the show. And I think Kody, I can't decide if Kody is who the show thinks that's who they want us to think he picks. Because they're just so sweet and seem to be like so enamored of each other. I mean, those poems or like letters to each other were so lame, but they like thought they were amazing. And like when she was like, he asked me my favorite color, like it was so eye roll to me, but like I feel like what the show came off as sweet. Mm-hmm. So either she wins and it's so obvious, or they're trying to hide that him and Gabby also have something special too. But I think it has to be one of those two. It
has to, or at least it's they're definitely 1-2. I don't think that he will send either one of them home before the finale. So, but yeah, and then you mentioned before about this, the witch date magician mind reader, which was kind of crazy.
I know, it was fascinating. I've seen a few videos with like mentalists like that, and they always can guess like what you're thinking on the whiteboard. And that is actually really interesting to watch. I enjoyed watching it. I did kind of feel bad for the women just because it's a lot to think about. And if it's, an insecurity that you maybe weren't ready to admit, or like they were saying, these things can be misconstrued. Kat admitting she wanted to leave doesn't mean she doesn't like Zach. It means that this process is exhausting. And when she didn't see him, when he had COVID, when the dates were canceled, they're traveling, like it's fair for her to have those feelings, and they could be taken out of context because the mentalist is like reading your mind and putting your thoughts out there. Charity, I mean, these like I feel like Charity is a very like level-headed, smart woman, and she was like, this mentalist is like messing with me emotionally. So fun to watch. Did feel a little bad for them. Like I get it's like someone putting words in their mouth.
No, definitely. And you see Gabby was getting all in her head too. She was like, are my flaws too much for him? Is my insecurity too much for him? My mental health and her ADHD, like things like that. She really was like you said, this person really got to them and had them kind of questioning everything. And, luckily it worked out for Gabby because she got the group date rose and she's going to hometowns. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting date. And, I don't know. I kind of liked it, but then we saw Greer. We forgot about Greer. She came back after a 3-week break, took that breakup especially hard. Like, did you really think that you were going to get a hometown date after not seeing him for 3 weeks?
I mean, what did they tell Greer, right? Because listen, I've seen this so many things here. One, everyone was so upset when Logan just disappeared from last season. So I get why maybe the show was like, we have to give closure to the fans, or so people don't question us saying someone has COVID the way no one even believes to this day that Logan had COVID, even though he said it himself, he did. So that's one thing, right? They want to give Greer the chance, give the audience a chance to wrap up the story. But the way that they were like, she was quarantining in the last country and then we had to fly her to this one. It's like, poor Greer, maybe just send her home. She did fly all that way to be dumped. I think it was worth it because the mascara tears were just beautifully done. I mean, right up there with your Lauren Conrad, your Ashley Kennedy, great criers. So it delivered a lovely moment, but they had to have been telling her, he's still thinking of you. He asks about you. He wants to see you. He's worried about you. Let's either wrap up the story or you're going to chance, like, this is going to be your moment. Like, even if you don't get it, like, it's going to be so important. But they were probably saying, like, he needs to see you. So she came in all confident to then have him and he couldn't even hide it. He brought up the weather within 10 seconds.
Right. Like, we're done here. We're absolutely, and we know that they could do Zoom interviews and things like that, Zoom dates. So they could have just done it over Zoom. Like, wrap this up real quick. This poor girl didn't need to get on a plane. She didn't need to go through this public humiliation. Just send her on her way, and we would have been okay with it. But poor thing, felt really bad for her.
It was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Another one I felt bad for, obviously Brooklyn breaking up with her, kind of coming to that realization during the dinner that, maybe she was a little further along than he was. You feel bad. I really liked her.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, the drama with her and Kat. Like, I still feel like there was something missing last week that we didn't totally see. And I thought maybe it was going to pick back up because Kat kind of continued throughout the episode, like, trying to be happy for the other girls, but clearly not being, but they either didn't show it or, like, they squashed that to some degree. But I liked Brooklyn. I think it is tough because those are the moments when I do kind of feel bad for The Bachelor also, because they can only give 4 people hometown date roses, and she's talking about her grandpa in such high regards, and he's like, I don't want to meet this girl's grandpa and then send her home. Like, he knew she was at the bottom. Yeah. So while you could probably swap out a Brooklyn or an Ariel, in my eyes, based on what we've seen with Zach, he had just had this conversation with her and now was like, oh crap, I can't give her this rose. She's talking about her amazing grandpa who's gonna be mad at me. Yeah. So, like, there's a lot going on here, and that's when, like, people are gonna have to get hurt by the nature of the show. But yeah, you feel bad for her for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Were you surprised that he just picked Ariel and Charity over Kat then?
I wasn't surprised about Charity, but I was surprised about Ariel. I thought that Ariel, he clearly, it's like it's kind of dark to say, but, like, whatever is most recent in front of him is, like, what Zach is like into, because Ariel came out of nowhere. He admitted that himself. Kat's date was a long time ago. And we did ask Zach about this at the Women Tell All taping. He said, we had such a strong connection early on, and I just never felt off by any means. Nothing ever happened that was wrong, but the other relationships were going were just much stronger and stronger, and I couldn't deny those. I had to make a very tough decision, and there was nothing she did wrong or anything. That's why you kind of just I don't take the goodbyes well, because the feelings don't evaporate once you make that decision. And then we asked Jesse Palmer, because obviously we see Jesse Palmer comforting Zach, kind of his first moment as host of this season. That was like, oh, I want to know what Jesse Palmer was thinking in that moment, because he had a front row seat to a pretty raw Zach, an emotional moment, someone who was a front runner. And he said, if I'm being honest, there was a time that I thought Kat was the one. Having talked to Zach on camera and off camera, I really thought it was Kat in the end. So I know how difficult those decisions were becoming for him. And I know he was taking the goodbyes. I knew that was going to be a tough one. So I'm with the producers watching the goodbye at the castle in Budapest. And I just saw his face when he was standing out in front of the castle. And I thought, man, I just got to go and give this guy a hug. He just needs someone to be there for him in this moment. He's always been great about allowing me to share this space with him. But I wasn't the only one surprised at Kat going home at that point. I know that was one of the toughest decisions Zach had this entire experience. So definitely a more emotional one. I think that it did translate on screen, but also off. Like, it was genuine, like a surprise for people.
Yeah, no, it really was a surprise. And yeah, like you said, it had a lot of momentum early on, kind of faded away. And, Ariel just had that one-on-one date last week. So yeah, fresh in his mind. And I still don't think that maybe if Kat got a second one-on-one date, things would have been different. But, I'm going with Kody at the end. That's my guess.
I think so. I'll say Gabby, just so we can have a little fun in the competition.
Totally. All right. Well, let's get into our social spotlight of the week. And, while we're talking about The Bachelor, everybody on social media has been talking about the scandal that is rocking Bravo Nation. Tom Sandoval cheating on Ariana with Raquel, and even Bachelor Nation is getting involved. Jade Roper took to her Instagram stories, said started watching the newest season of Vanderpump Rules, and it's so crazy watching this now with the news of Sandoval cheating on Ariana. So many of the little things said here and there you wouldn't have blinked an eye at before, but now crazy. #team Ariana. It's all we can talk about.
It's all we can talk about. We are obviously Team Ariana over here as well, but I'm also team just like, wow, thank you so much. After 10 years of still delivering cast of Vanderpump Rules, I owe you so much. And I also saw Caitlin Bristow commenting clapping emojis on one of Katie Maloney's posts supporting Ariana. So I love a little reality TV crossover. We need like, not that I'm rooting for cheating scandals in The Bachelor, but I might be like a little more excited if somebody cheated on somebody at some point. So, you know, it's sad and it's, you know, something we don't want to really root for. But when it happens, it's just, you can't stop thinking and talking about it.
Yeah, like literally mind blown. All I did all weekend long was just refresh Instagram, see what was new, see what people were talking about. And it's mind blowing. It really is.
The memes, the past clips, these episodes that are going to start airing now, like old reunions, the speculation, the comments, the back and forth. It's insane.
It's actually insane. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Here for the Right Reasons. Bachelor next week is Monday and Tuesday. So check out our recap on Wednesday. And keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.